Okay. Welcome everyone. It's 5 o'clock. I'd like to call our meeting to order, and we will begin with our students leading us into the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everybody, please stand for the pledge and please take your hats off. Flag's back there. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My name is...
Hold on, baby. Oh, we just have a couple things first. I will hear a motion for approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes, and now, welcome, Sagal Elementary. You guys are on.
Hi. Well, good evening. I'm Chris Davis. I am the very proud principal of Sagal Elementary School, and I have our amazing kindergarten teacher, Ashley DeLucci, here. She's going to introduce our friends and tell you a little bit about why we're here this evening. Hi there. I'm Ashley DeLucci, as she said, and I brought together a team of kids to represent Sagal School. And they're going to be doing the presentation, but before we do that, I just wanted to give a shout out to PAVE. We have some PAVE people in the audience, so thank you so much for making opportunities like this available to us teachers so that we can write grants. This planetarium has reached over 500 students and their families, and so we're hoping to branch that out next year to even more kiddos in the district. So thank you so much, PAVE. We're going to let the kiddos take it away. Go ahead.
My name is Quinn DeLucci. My name is Porter Weed and I'm 3rd grade.
My name is Caitlin Erickson, I'm in 5th grade.
My name is Raylan Sikla and I'm in 6th grade.
I'm in 3rd grade.
This is a video of the planetarium we're going to be showing you.
Are you guys able to see that at night sometimes?
Yeah, I've seen it from my aunt's house. This is our portable inflatable planetarium. It is a dome tent and a PVC floor. It also includes a blower.
This is the projector for the planetarium where we insert the different discs we have.
We have purchased several discs to show students throughout the school year. This one is called the Galaxies disc. It shows the Milky Way and a lot of stars. This is the solar system disc. All of the discs have the shooting stars except the one that's going to come up. This one has all the planets, even Pluto, and little update. And there is the Milky Way right there. You can see the little line, and this is one of my favorites. We did. And there's a zoom in also.
This is the deep sea disk that we are going to get this spring.
This is the one. Has the moon and the Earth, and the moon rotating around the Earth, and it shows the 8 phases of the moon, and in the background the Milky Way.
This is our northern constellation disc. This was personally my favorite disc because we got to learn about all the constellations and different zodiacs. This is our entire kind of summary of what we're talking about. Miss Stubbs is our computer and STEAM lab teacher. She does and puts together this entire thing. In this planetarium, we'll be able to learn astronomy, geology, physical geography, and much more. This entire thing is kind of like a virtual field trip, except we just never have to leave the school. Learning about all of this is quite amazing, and it gives an amazing interactive experience for the kids, including myself.
The Idaho standards for the Earth and space science. Kindergarten students will get an exposure to how the sun warms the Earth. Third grade students will get an in-depth lesson about the planets and the stars. Fifth and sixth grade students will learn about the Earth geography as well as the universe and its stars. In third grade, I learned about the moon phases. The moon has 8 different phases. 16.
Throughout the school year, we have moved through the planetarium at least twice this year and one more. We are sharing the stone with our neighboring school, Southside. Lessons and activities will be based on level of grade level and Idaho's expectations. My favorite part was when we got to see the Milky Way and how realistic it was to when I got to see it outside. Total grant, $4,000.45. Thank you, paid. We had over $200 left over, so we have purchased a projection plan for the projector. So if we break it in at least these 2 years, we will be able to get a whole new one. And we have bought a couple more discs like the deep sea disc that you have seen. We will be using that this spring.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation. So if you have questions, the kids are prepared to answer questions.
I just have a couple of comments. I've never come to a school board meeting and laid on my back in the warehouse. That was new, and it's very cold. And I thought it was great that you guys stood outside the door and welcomed us and told us what to do and gave us the whole full experience. It was very gracious of you to do that, and you're all very well spoken. What did you guys think? Pretty impressive, huh?
Super cool. So can you guys, after going through this, can you go outside and recognize anything that you see outside?
Yeah, some constellations.
Yeah, I can recognize the Big Dipper in the Milky Way.
It's good.
And
Those are the two that I recognize.
What did you bring? What happened yesterday? Yeah, what happened yesterday?
Yesterday?
I'll
tell them.
Yeah.
I'll tell them.
Go ahead, Caitlin.
Okay, so yesterday we had the solar eclipse.
Oh, yeah.
But unfortunately it was too cloudy, so we couldn't see it. But through Texas, all the way through Maine, they could see the whole experience. But if you look up at the solar eclipse without sunglasses, you can go blind. And some of the teachers who were outside during recess when it was happening, they'd go to their camera, look up at it, and they could see it through the screen.
We also had, with some teachers, had a few live performances on the solar eclipse throughout the entire day. So.
That's exciting. Cool. Yeah, any other questions? Thank you so much, you guys. That was great. Sorry.
Everybody's leaving.
I know.
You know that stuff. You never see.
I know.
You're in the room.
Chief Financial Officer Brian Wallace, one of these days we'll put you in front of the students just so you have a big audience.
I'll have to do that. I know. No, this is better. We don't want to.
And you'll do
I
interactive.
apologize in advance. This is a longer report than normal, so you'll have to suffer a little bit.
Okay.
So, Chairman Lewis, members of the board, Dr. Meyer. The first part of the finance report for this month, I was going to go over some of the budget planning that we've been doing. Some legislative updates are there, so it's a little more in depth, sort of similar to what Lisa Halls did last year, where she got a little more into what's happening and our planning for next year and how that is going. So first on the legislative side, a big part of what at the State Department level they were trying to get in was trying to change a bit of the funding formula from how we're currently funded to at least partial or funding would have been based on a per student instead of a per unit. And so we're funded by units, which you think of a unit as a classroom. And yet, you know, they take our attendance, and depending on how many kiddos are showing up and how many you have, that can give you so many classrooms are funded, and then there's staffing ratios based off those classrooms. They're trying to get away from that model and be a more direct student enrollment model, but they just were not able to get that through the legislature. The money would have been that much different, but it was an attempt to try to get enrollment funding in and hopefully not have the attendance issues that we had like this year. But regardless, it did not pass. So the support unit funding based on attendance is like it's been since, I think that system's been in place since 1994, it continues. Part of that weighted student funded formula, if they were going to implement that, is some line items: safe and drug-free schools, college career advisors. These are categorical funding, safe professional development funds. They have some money they call content curriculum, English language learners, which is very small, math and science requirement, which we get sort of some math instruction. All those would have been sort of rolled in that weighted student funding, but that didn't happen. They remain as in previous years and are just going to move forward. So it's really similar to last year. On our discretionary funding units, which is, these are the dollars that we get, the units where we get sort of a flat amount. It's not based on salary-based apportionment. There's two dollar amounts in there. One is general discretionary, and then a few years ago they said half of our discretionary had to go to medical. Well, anyway, this year the general discretionary increased. You can see that unit increase. The medical went down, which is, I didn't quite understand their logic, but they said that I think they're following how the state plan goes, and so some of the dollars are sort of, even though we're not on the state plan, we'll follow that. They also said that, well, since there's less students, we're going to give you less money for medical, even though since we went back to ADA, that's why there was less. It's already sort of baked into the formula, so, but they didn't ask me my math. So regardless, we did get an overall increase, which will be good when we go. Salary-based apportionment, they followed just the law for the career ladder for the teacher funding. And last year, they did increase teacher salaries, which is part of our salary schedule now, the $6,359. It's not in the career ladder language, so they sort of have to approve that every year, and they did. That was good. The 3% increase to classified administrative staff is just on the funding formula. So our average administrator for funding, we get about $65,000. The 3% was increasing that 65. We get on average about $37,000 for every classified employee. It was a 3% on that $37,000. On that base is what it is. And it's also only on how many they fund you. So for our classified staff, the formula funds us about 50%.
And we fund that.
And we fund the whole, and we're generally, for a full-time person, we're paying more than that. So, but sometimes people get confused. Well, they give you 3% raise. Well, not really. They just increase the formula, is
Exactly.
we want to do. Next slide. So they did do, this is a special distribution, one-time dollars, and you might have heard some stuff in the paper. They actually did fund 140 million, but 40 of the millions going to facilities and CTE. So the 105 million, the special distribution is going to all the district. It's going to be based on our ADA, our statewide ADA. So we have not got the amount that we'll get. It will probably be near $1 million. So it's coming here. It's not going to be reflected in next year's budget. It's just, we'll have dollars in fund balance, but it's not. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's not. Since we received the money this year, we recorded this year, so it won't be part of next year's budget, even though we'll probably spend some of the dollars next year. And finally, on state appropriation, as far as, you know, what does all this mean for our net additional dollars? The tools that the State Department issues to help us calculate that, they're just releasing this week. They're not out yet, so, you know, we'll have some pretty hard numbers coming in the next, before May, as we start really looking at that. It's definitely going to be assuming that we have the same attendance. Our revenues are going to be going up because some of the formulas went up, but generally inflation and increases of just annual costs will probably will sort of stay even Steven. It's not like we're going to have a lot of dollars for extras. This is the facilities funding, of course, a lot of news. The new House Bill 521, passed, and it's $1 billion in new school district facilities funds. And of course, that's $1 billion over the next 10 years. So it's not $1 billion each year. So over the 10 years, our estimated revenues, and this number could be different when all is said and done, is that $14.6 million. We will have the option to receive all the funds up front. Did have a statewide Zoom with the State Department. We have a monthly one that the State Department meets with finance directors, and they will have that in place for us to get, you know, early next fiscal year. For there, we'll have to submit some paperwork, a 10-year plan, if they're going to give us the template on what to do. But if you want to, the district, we want to move forward, get the dollars up front, but most people are thinking that's the best way to go. There'll be some there, but it's going to be available. They discontinued some, what they call bond levy equalization, which since we didn't have any bonds we didn't take advantage of. That's actually a pretty big deal for some districts.
Right.
Lottery facilities maintenance match, we're losing that. So we will get the 14.6, but you know, last year we got 352,000 in lottery dollars, and that's going away because sort of lottery dollars are being part of that billion. Other things with that law, the August election was eliminated. So really you have two now. It will be, you can have an election in May or November. And the final one on facilities funding is the last year's language where we received some facility school, it was the property tax relief and school facility funding. They changed some language that if you had a plant facility levy, that's now included in the list of an allowable use. So, I mean, what that means is that before you could, if these dollars to be used for actual facilities, you had a plant facility levy, it's going to pay off that levy first, so you're not really getting additional dollars. It's just helping out, help out the local taxpayer, of course.
But this corrected it.
But yeah, so before, if you had a plant that didn't, you could get the money. So since we don't have a school plant facility levy either, and we don't have a permanent supplemental levy is not allowable use, we're able to put those dollars in and direct them to facilities. So I had this slide before just sort of to remember where we're at. You know, we're right here in April and May, so you know, the revenue projectors are actually a little bit behind we'd like to be, but the legislature took a little bit longer this year. This is where we're really looking at our department building budgets, which I'm going to have a little bit of information on. We'll start to look at our salary and benefit costs for next year and looking at budget priorities. In May, we'll have some harder numbers for you just to review and get an idea of where we're really going to land, but then the formal budget hearing is in June. So the next slide. So we're looking at the goals of the budget, and I guess where when I worked with our directors and with Dr. Meyer, what sort of philosophically we're going to try to do with our money. One is we want to maintain the current programs. Is that what we have going on we think is being successful, and we sort of want to at least maintain that and move forward. Also support the strategic plan. And so facility needs are up there, and so actually with the legislative help, the House Bill 521 and 292 are really going to help us, maybe not, we don't get the money until August, so planning takes time, but those plans and work with the long range facility planning committee are going to, in the next few years, we're going to be able to do, I think, some significant work that will really help the district. We want to maintain our quality staff, so we're going to make sure that the dollars we receive from the state, that continue to be competitive with the compensation and benefits, and continue to do professional development. And on the student connection, is that goal, we're going to continue to maintain curriculum. The Chromebook replacement cycle and the one-to-one initiative is important, so we're putting resources to continue that. And of course, a large part of our educational program is very important is the extracurricular activities, and we're supporting those. So how are we going to project some of our dollars? I'm projecting, sort of a flat enrollment. I don't think hopefully we won't go down like this year, but you never know. But that converts to 189 funding units. So when we had enrollment, we were like at 198 units, and that's a unit's now worth about $150,000. So that's no joke. It's a significant dollar. This year we only had 183 units, but that was because of that weird protection law. So with that off the books, that's where we should be if we have about the same amount of kiddos. Our department program budget requests have been submitted and reviewed, and we looked at that, and some of the requests were approved, some were not, that the department heads wanted. At the health insurance renewal, we haven't had the formal number yet, but rumor out on the street is it's probably going to be about a 9% increase on health insurance. So that's not inexpensive. Should have the new mid rates, actually mid-April is when they said they'd have them. We just haven't received the official, but I don't think it's going to be too far off that number. Federal grant estimates, or Title I, things like that, they're probably going to be pretty similar to last year. They've been pretty static over the last few years, but we don't really get those official numbers until May. And interstate bargaining, of course, as we work with our with the association, and so much salaries and benefits do drive our budget. Haven't had negotiations, but in a couple of days we will. First meeting is scheduled April 11th, and we'll see where we land on that. So on some of the adjustments, even before we're looking at negotiations, even though we're maintaining program, Dr. Meyer asks the department heads and myself, where are we at with staffing? Where are we with your programs? Is there adjustments that are going to cost us more dollars that is going to happen? Are there places that we could maybe save some dollars as we're moving forward? So the staffing is really, if we look at, you say, well, how are we saving that many dollars in staffing? And this is not assuming any of the negotiated agreement and where we may land there. Well, we have had some retirements. We've looked at some extra days and some days that classified staff are going where we could maybe reduce some of those and still get the same level of service for the program. So some of those are some savings of dollars, especially if you have a high-end certified staff member. Maybe you don't have to replace that position, or they're going to come in with someone lower on the salary schedule that saves you some dollars. You look at the tech, We are probably going to increase our non-employee costs in technology next year, mostly because software subscription costs and Chromebook replacement for this year. A lot of it is software subscription costs. Is actually software as a service is a good business model for the software companies. I don't know for the customers. Facilities, Mr. Deal is here now. He actually gave us a pretty flat budget, so we appreciate that. On the benefits side, a 9% increase is, sort of about a $500,000 bill. Transportation looks like, on the non-employee side that we're going to be able to run that relatively flat. Adding a few coaches will add a few dollars. We're increasing a little bit with elementary music and PE, just supply budget was requested. Teaching and learning, we're keeping that flat. We are going to have a carry forward next year and build that in the budget for a future curriculum adoption. Just won't really be spending it next year, but holding on to it so that we can afford it when that curriculum is adopted. And negotiations, that is the question of what that impact would be and out in process.
One thing I would like to add, I usually don't interrupt, but I just want to make sure that goes on record. The facilities piece, and Mr. Deal is going to actually help me a little bit with my presentation so he can speak more to it when he's up here if the board has questions. But because of the HVAC, electrical, plumbing, the things that he has, we've dealt with at Sanford Middle School and some other schools, his projection is he needs to add another, when it says 1 FTE, that means he's adding, what FTE stands for full-time equivalent, it just means he's adding 1 position, and he's reducing his equipment so that he can offset it. So that's why that's what that means. I just really want it on record that that is because of the needs and the deteriorating places. He needs to have somebody else on staff to be able to help with that. So I just think that's important.
Yes, and some of the reducing the equipment purchases and how we can, it'll sort of work as in our planning is that that new facilities money is coming. And so some of those dollars that we were spending out of the general fund to support that, we can use some of those facility dollars and get the staffing that's really, especially during the winter months on the HVAC, the maintenance department it's nervous time to keep our buildings open right now. Hopefully some of the facilities money we can fix some of those issues. So the next steps, I need to confirm revenue projections with the State Department budget forms. Next week, the State Department will be in Coeur d'Alene for the Legislative Roadshow. And Trustee Sherman was there last year when it was at NIC. This year it's going to be at the Coeur d'Alene Resort. But they give a recap sort of the finance part of the legislative session, and they also do a section on teaching and learning and policy. And we're going to, once we work with negotiations complete, really our salary benefit cost projections where, honestly, most of our state dollars, most of the dollars are coming through salary-based apportionment, and typically most of those dollars are going to be gobbled up by negotiations. That's okay. That's actually the intent of the dollars. The May board meeting, of course, we'll have a draft budget. Won't be everything. There'll still be probably a few adjustments. Also, the goal is that the negotiations will be finished and that at least there'll be a proposal and agreement that the board could at least vote on and hopefully ratify. And same on the other side of the table. And then the June board meeting is the budget hearing adoption. So any questions on sort of where we're at with the budget or feedback on the board? Just
Looks good.
okay. All right. So here's just the normal slide with our revenues and projections here this month. Revenues we received $626,000 of revenue, so not a whole lot. We got some of those line items came in from the state, that I said that they were going to eliminate, but they didn't. Well, they'll be there next year too. So those ones came in. And on our expenditure side, again, we're very consistent. We're right around that $3.7, $3.8 million every month, and salary and benefits are like 3.1, 3.2. So we're sort of tracking along. I think we're going to sort of have a flat year that we shouldn't cut into fund balance too much, but we're not going to add very much. The green lines are starting to grow pretty close, especially our materials and supplies and purchase services and things like that. We really don't have a whole lot more purchasing going on. For our purchase services, I mean, the dollars that really go up are really our utility bill. And otherwise, we're not going to spend too much more dollars in those areas. And our revenue sources, we have received, you know, the next big dollars that will come is really the second half of property taxes that come in August, but come back this year. And, you know, we will get a payment. There's a May payment that will come for the state dollars, and then you get a final payment in July. They true up with all your attendance numbers and things. And finally, enrollment, we lost. If we look at the previous month, we were down 18 kids from the previous month, and sometimes that's just sort of the nature of beast this time of the year. And we compare year to year, we're down 32 kids. So again, when we were down 100 earlier this year, when you compared year to year, we've done a good job keeping the kids and maintaining that. But enrollment has, you know, been pretty consistent since January, November. And I think that's all I have. And I apologize for taking so long.
No.
But I'm here for any other questions.
Important stuff. Are there any questions from the board? It was very thorough, and I think that this timeline mapped out for us, the April, May, June, seems completely doable because of all the back work you've been doing with each of the departments. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get it done.
Yep.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move right into superintendent report.
Okay.
Dr. Meyer, welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Okay. Well, you remember that first slide, connection.
Yeah, we do.
The strategic plan, it's also in the back if people want to remind themselves of it. So wow, this thing is touchy. You should put a new battery in, I think. So the first one is the facilities, safety and facilities. Just reminding you that the long range, CFO Wallace alluded to this, but our long range facility planning committee will have a recommendation to you by June. That's our plan, is to present in June. You can see that we had a big prioritization discussion here. We have done a lot of work the last two meetings at really funneling all the information and starting to prioritize as a group. And we're going to do April 16th, our next meeting is at Clark Fork. There was enough people that wanted to be out at Clark Fork. And then Mr. Deal has done video tours of all the others and then offered people to come. So he did a tour of Southside this morning. Tomorrow morning, or a couple of days, he's doing Farm and Stidwell tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. at Farm and Stidwell. Wow. Some patrons may be joining him, and then they're doing the video. So if anybody can't come to a tour, we're doing a video tour. Well, I helped at Clark Fork film, but now he's doing all the rest. So,
dedication.
Yeah, dedication. Customer service. I told him today he gets an A+ for customer service. So I kind of gave the board about 6 months ago a heads up, probably before you were even voted in, that the track is unusable. Sandpoint High School, Sandpoint Middle School used the track. Unusable. We can't have home events. We had to cancel the middle school event. We have to move all of the events up to Clark Fork that they're doing, and it's just not safe. It'd be negligent for us to hold events there. It was established, and I think these are right. Oh, you're supposed to be up here with me, Mr. Deal. Sorry.
You were doing a great job.
Yeah. So I don't know if those are off the top of your memory.
They're pretty close.
Pretty close. So he thinks it was done in 1991 and then resurfaced once in 2002. I'm going to go to the next slide and let you talk. I just want the board to know it's become an unsafe condition, and I made the decision that we are going to resurface this. We could get on the books without waiting, and so that we could have events next year if we got on the books now. So we are going to take this from the contingency fund, but I want Mr. Deal to tell you a little bit more about this.
So there's several different issues with the track. So a running track has a rubberized surface that is, I'm not a track guy, so I can't speak too well to it, but it's a little bit of padding. Well, our padding is worn off. I think best practice is replacing that padding surface like every 10 to 12 years. Well, we've been since 2002, so we've got our money's worth out of that. We tend to stretch things a little longer here around these parts than in some parts. So the padding's worn. There's a couple areas that have developed in the last few years. On the west side, there's a couple settling areas that are actually like a tripping hazard. You cannot run that lane. There's some other areas that when there's when it's wet, there's literally bubbles under the running surface. There's some other issues with
If we go to the next page, yeah.
there's some
Where
other
are you saying
issues.
the west side over?
The west side is over here, and there's the settling, little bit of settling
Sinkholes is what
here
they call it.
that we have to fix. The runway for the pole vault is like this wide, and I guess when you're pole vaulting, you're looking down and running, and it's pretty dangerous because there's a real tendency to like step off that runway for ankle rolling and that kind of
So
thing.
it wasn't built wide enough in the first place?
It wasn't
No.
built wide enough, and I think,
Yeah.
you know, we know that back, you know, they probably different standards then, and
Yeah.
just like the parking lot at the high school was paved with a little bit of gravel over mud. You know, they were trying to stretch the dollars as far as they can. Well, we just can't responsibly keep going with it the way it is. So this is kind of a reconfiguring of adding another long jump pit, because they end up, when they have a track meet with girls and boys, and they have so many kids participate in track, to get all the kids through those events, the track meet ends up running to 8 o'clock at night. So it's not going to end up here. The actual pit, this was the first concept. The pit's going to actually be wider here with a double lane, because the track people tell me this is a busy spot because this is the finish line, so we can't have the pit here. A little bit, so just some different maintenance issues on it to make it real. It'll be nice.
And also with the high jump,
A little bit of difference at the high jump.
Thing there.
This, when it was built, the pad was supposed to go here. Well, it turns out that this is uphill just a little bit. Well, again, I'm not a track guy, but they tell me that running uphill just that little bit evidently slows you down enough to where you can't jump as high.
Yeah.
So years ago, they built a wood platform and put the pad here so they can run downhill. Well, we're going to make that proper and put a culvert in there and for that rather than a wood pad. And let's see, anything else?
I know.
That pretty sums it up. It'll be nice. People will want to come for a track meet. And just when you think about the number of kids, and I don't know the number, I probably should since I'm standing up here, but between the number of track students at high school and then middle school, it's over 200 kids. So it's well utilized venue. And also then there's some park and rec programs and Special Olympics and that kind of thing that also utilize the track.
You mentioned using contingency dollars for this. Do you have a like big old stab at what that is yet?
Probably around $400,000.
Okay. What percentage of our contingency does that represent?
A very small portion.
Thank you. That's a good enough answer.
Yeah, we definitely
I just
have-
wanted to get a sense.
We have like 18 million, remember it?
Oh, yeah,
Lisa
yeah.
had budgeted that out just for the new people.
Okay.
Lisa had budgeted that out to be able to maintain, be able to do cost of living increases for staff through 2027 without going back out to the voters to ask for an increase in our indefinite term levy, which is our permanent levy. So that is from that.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
And you know, we've done a lot of maintenance and little repairs and patching, and had Bain and the company that does this come up year after year. They've commented over the years, you guys have really done a good job with stretching this.
Yeah.
But over the last 2 or 3 years, it's like, whoa, this thing has taken a turn for the worse, like really fast. And that's why we're at the point now, it's like having,
It's like a full page.
like as far as your
Yeah.
campus goes and your infrastructure, this is like, we're broke.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's something that needs to happen before, like, the planning process of going in through the committee and the long-range plan and bringing to that. It really needs to be done.
The other piece of it is that it also puts our students at a competitive disadvantage.
Yeah.
And you know this by living in North Idaho, when your wrestlers and baseball players and basketball players and cross-country folks have to go somewhere else. Schools will not, they refuse to come here for a home event because it's unsafe. So we have to go to other places for home events, and we have to pay for hotels, food. Our families have to pay travel to go down there, and we also don't get the revenue to have a gate for people to come into our spot. So not only is the facility issues that Mr. Deal is talking about, but looking at it as a district, it's also for our families. We really need to be able to have our home events at our home. I think it's really important.
And from what they tell me too, if we're able to make this happen, I mean, it'll be the best, newest surface. And it's not this is not the NCAA surface. I mean, they've all different grades. This is not the entry grade. It's just up from that a little bit. It's like the longevity. It's like the Toyota. You know, it's not like the Mercedes, and it's not the Yugo. It's like the Toyota.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
So,
good. We
but
need these
from,
visuals.
like, schools will want to come.
Whatever it was done with 20 years ago, let's use that again. It worked fine for 20 years.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have? I wanted the expert to be here because he's been doing all of the reaching out and meeting with folks. Does anybody have any questions
Any other
for
questions?
Mr. Deal?
I think we're good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Good.
Okay, so improving fast, hard, right, we're looking at student connection now, and I just wanted to remind you that here we wanted to increase CTE options for our students. This is something that I'm the superintendent representative on the CTE, which is Career Technical Education. Used to be Voc Ed when we were younger, but I'm the superintendent rep on the advisory council for the state. And one thing that came out of our last meeting, I just thought it was really important that people really recognize CTE is so important to our community. If you look at our state, 94% of CTE concentrators, that means people that make it through their progression of classes. They call them completers or concentrators. When they graduated from high school, look at that, 94% compared to 80. Hands-on relevancy, they're really seeing them that they're getting a lot of bang for their buck when they're in CTE courses. If you look over here, CTE who went on to college, 48, 42. So the piece that we really wanted to make evident and why I think it's so important that this is in our strategic plan is that CTE is not only important for our community, but it also is helping, it's creating more success for our graduates. You know, not only to graduate, but post-secondary. So super important. We have plans to further expand CTE in the next couple of years. Knock on wood. So recruit and retain quality staff. Mr. Wallace talked about this a little bit. I just wanted you to know part of that, you saw it right here, is continue PLCs and job-specific training, providing robust and relevant PD. So we are on April 26th. Oh, I left that off. I took it off, but Friday, April 26th is a PLC day. It's a PD staff district-wide. So I'll add that before we put it on the website. It's April 26th. We're going to have, these are the different options that we're going to be doing. Each principal has their own agenda, and they're concentrated on their data, PBIS, which is member positive behavior interventions and supports, unfinished learning gaps, and exploring best practices. So we have agendas from every principal, and they'll be really diving deep and focusing on what that staff needs to be able to move the needle forward. Foster community connection. A week from tomorrow, make sure the board come to that. It's going to be great, and we have a lot of advertisements. Tomorrow morning, the radio interview is going to go. We have an article in the paper going. We just want to make sure. Free dinner and free childcare. So
dinner?
Yeah.
Write that one down.
It's sandwiches, fruit, vegetables. And she got cookies too, because she knows how the board likes cookies.
Most people like it.
Most people, okay. So I'd love to see the board there. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then reminding you that we just had the loop, welcome spring, and if anybody in the community wants to look at any prior loops, they're linked in the loop there. And student learning, always the center of everything we do, which brings me to the library bill. And Trustee Peters has been talking to us for several months with Board Chair Lewis and I about really wanting to do something about the library. So we've had, he's been very persistent, which I appreciate, and I keep putting him off, just so anyone in the public knows he has asked numerous times, and I keep putting him off until the legislation go through. Because last year there were several, and they got vetoed by the governor. It's sitting on the governor's desk right now. no matter what happens, we can write a board policy after this is done. I just want to make sure if the legislation was done, we have moving forward. I put the House Bill 710. I feel like it's going to be successful. He has until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to sign it, so hopefully he does. And it's called Children's School and Library Protection Act. I think it's a good bill. Myself personally, I think it'll be good for kids. The essence of what it is that and it won't cost us a ton of money, which a prior edition did, where there'd be lots of committees and different things. If anybody has a concern about any of the material in the library, they bring it to the library lead or the principal, and then they have to go through the process of reviewing it and deciding if it goes into, if it has harmful material. There's definitions in the law. They put it in that section, and they notify parents. So we can do a policy based on that. Trustee Peters, or would you like to add anything?
You're welcome.
Repeated emails.
All right, open enrollment. I just wanted to give you an update since the applications were due February 1st. You knew that by law that changed this year, and the notification we needed to do by the end of March. So we did that Friday before spring break. As I told you in the board update, Kelly spent the better part of probably 3 or 4 days making phone calls. Luckily, she's so great at that. And admin assistants in every building helped her as well. Yeah. So a lot of teamwork with this. Right now, we have 294 students that have been accepted. 0 students are pending. 3 students were denied. All 3 of those were based on behavior. So, and those were 3 current students that were denied for continuing enrollment. I will remind the board that applications, we still are allowed to continue in receiving those, which we will, because as we get closer to when registration in August and September, those numbers will increase.
So those are out-of-district students that were
Yep.
accepted?
Yep.
How many of those do?
No, sorry.
Yeah, please do.
So those are 294 students that applied. Not all of those 294 students are out of district. If you're zoned for Kootenai Elementary School and you want to attend Washington, you have to file an open enrollment. So those are in district.
Some of them are
as
cross.
well. Yeah. I could get you that number of out of district.
Yeah, because I would be just curious
Yeah.
if that's increased from last year or not, that out of district.
Yeah, that would-
number. 'Cause
yeah.
I know that was a concern
Right, it was.
with this whole deal, right?
Yeah, I was thinking, if it says, nope, it doesn't say here. Nope. Last year we had that number of how many were from each district, so we'll do that. We'll do that slide again as well. Yeah. We have to.
Very good.
Yeah. I just wanted to give you an update, but I'll give you another. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Okay, so we have this is public comment. We have one community member here for public comment, Julie Jarenka, and the Board of Trustees welcomes patron comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, must be appropriate for open forum. Input not identify individual personnel or students or be abusive, defamatory, or obscene. This is a board meeting held in public, not a public board meeting. Thus, no discussion or responses will occur during the comment, and issues may be referred to the proper staff person or committee for follow-up.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. As Geraldine said, my name is Julie Jarenka, and I'm a parent of 2 former Sandpoint High School graduates, one in 2011 and one in 2014. And I've been an active volunteer for the school district for about 30 years, before my kids even started school. And recently, it came to my attention, I understand that there's been some concern expressed at a previous school board meeting about scholarships that are offered to our high school students. And I don't really understand what the concern is, but I just wanted to speak to that a little bit today. Over the last 20 years, I have been a member of numerous scholarship committees and selected many scholarship recipients during that time. Our students here in the district have the opportunity to apply to many different kinds of scholarships. I think there's over 90 now. And they can choose which ones they apply to based on their interests and needs. So because of all that, I'm a strong advocate for continuing to offer a wide variety of scholarships to our students, because the interests are so varied and the types of continuing education they want to pursue are varied. So I think the larger selection that we have, the better off that, the more opportunity our students will have. It's regardless of whether they're pursuing post-secondary education in the military, the trades, college, or university degrees. There's options for all of that. Back in 2010, when my daughter was applying for scholarships as a senior, it was an arduous process because almost every entity that offered a scholarship had their own application. So if your kid wanted to apply for 10 scholarships, they had to fill out 10 different types of applications, and it took a lot of time. But then I think it was about 10 years ago, the counselors at the high schools around the district got together and streamlined the process and created a common application for students so that they can basically fill out one application for most of the scholarships that are available in our district. So that streamlined things tremendously for students, and I think made them much more likely to apply for scholarships because it was just easier. They didn't have to fill out 10 different, or however many different applications. So the other thing I wanted to say about this is applying for scholarships in our district is completely optional. No student is required to apply for anything. And they're not, there's no requirements about a student needing to apply for a scholarship. It's completely up to them and their families whether they want to do that. And then the counselors at the high schools around the district can help match them with whichever scholarships are appropriate for their interests or whatever school they want to go to. And I think that our district counselors do a great job of working with the students. They are very available. The students can come to them and say, I'm interested in this, what would you recommend? And they provide them with a bunch of options, and then the students can discuss with their parents and apply to whatever they think is important. I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because
We're at 3 minutes.
Okay. I just can't, it surprised me that somebody would be upset about certain scholarships. Thank you.
Thank you. We are finished with public comment, and we have first reading of some policies. And I will open the first one is policy 2435. As you remember, the first reading is just no action item on this today, but it is your opportunity to discuss and ask questions. And this first one has, it's 2435 advanced opportunities revisions, and the summary of the revisions is that they are
All updates, yep, all updates there. And we did have the post-secondary career college advisor counselor read it over and give input.
Were there any questions based on what was outlined here? Okay, we've all had a chance to see it. If there's no questions, I will move on to the first reading of 3085, the sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. It takes me a second to open it, so.
You can see it's just,
On this one,
super minimal.
yes, minimal. We're just
barely any changes,
Yeah.
just based
So I
on.
have one question. The director serves athletics and activities, and the director of HR serves staff.
Yep.
Is there anything in there that says who, or do we need to say who serves students, or do the students just fall under athletic and activities?
Yes, for the students they do.
Because
And
this is just Title IX.
Yep.
So. Okay.
I did have some questions, and I know, this came up with very minimal changes, but as I was reading through, I did have some thoughts, so
Okay.
we're, I guess, open for discussion.
Yep.
There's some phrasing in the first paragraph that starts there, but there's probably about 8 other times it says, I'll read it here because you're scrolling that. That are the second line, that are free from sex and gender-based harassment, and then it continues on. that phrase I don't really love. I don't know if we have the ability to change that, because for me, the word gender, and also if you just look at the dictionary definition, is very open. It's very, what's the word, subjective. It's not definite on male or female or biological sex. And so I think that that's a big kind of an possibly open issue for potential issues, to leave it worded as gender-based, and maybe we either take that out completely, because we already have a policy that kind of backs up our bathroom policy and things like that for biological sex use and things like that. So I don't know if we take that phrase out, or we can change it to say sexual or sex-based harassment, to where it means biological sex-based harassment, not gender-based, because I think gender
has become a politically charged word.
Well, not
still
just that, but by definition, it is very open.
I think I'll look for follow-up. I'll look and make sure that it's not in the requirements, the wording's not in this Title IX of Educational Amendments of 1972 or the Non-Discrimination Act. I'll make sure that the exact wording isn't dictated in there and be able to come back to the board with that information.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, and there's a lot more with that with Title IX, I wish us as a local school board had the ability to not have to go word for word with some of this stuff, but I'll say stuff because I have other words in my mind, but I'll keep it real. I did have a couple other questions. If you look into that, that'd be great.
And
yeah,
see
I'll
what
look
you follow up on that language, and then we'll go on. What else?
In paragraph 3, I wrote notes, so I got to try to find it. But in paragraph 3, it says gender or gender identity, and it also says in there on the basis of sex. So it's almost like redundant, because it says on the basis of sex, which means biological sex, but then it also adds gender or gender identity, and it seems redundant. So I would prefer removing that portion and just leaving it basis of sex, because that means the same thing, unless we are going by the politically charged word or Webster's dictionary and leaving it open for subjection for people's identifying gender, which I don't think we should.
There's 4 words in a row there that are sort of alluding to the same thing, but it's hard to know exactly. It's possible that you're going to find the same.
Yeah, I'll look at that. I think it'll be in this again.
And then I did have one last thing, sorry.
No, good.
It's paragraph, what is it, paragraph 10. It's the mandatory reporting portion.
Oh, yeah.
And I know there's already laws, I think it's Title 16 or, I can't remember exactly, I was trying to look it up earlier, but it's already law that people, nurses, school teachers, school staff they're mandatory reporters. And I don't love the failure part of that, failure of a district employee. I feel like if we're going to leave the gender-based harassment in there, that we should remove that consequence for that, because there's a lot of religious beliefs of people around gender-based. I don't know how to explain it. The idea of someone identifying with a gender, not a biological sex, is very much a polarizing, religious, polarizing belief system. You know what I mean? Idea. And so,
if we've identified, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate on this, if we've identified an area of harassment earlier in this same document, there has to be follow through in our employees. That's what these policies are about. So we're not going to write a policy and say, here's the policy, and there's no consequences if you decide not to follow it just because of your own personal opinion. So I would hesitate strongly. My personal reaction is there's no point in the policy if you're going to say, and there's no consequence.
Well,
but
it's already law that they're mandatory reporters.
But we have a policy, and we're saying our policy includes this.
That if you fail to report, you're going to have a consequence, disciplinary action.
Correct.
And is that part of the Title 16 law? A failure to report. That's why I'm saying should we add that in there if it's. I just don't feel like that's the greatest part if that's outside of the actual mandatory reporting law already.
I think
I think you should report it. absolutely, but.
So Title IX might have some requirements of the language, so that,
Yeah.
all of these questions I think need to
Yeah.
be just
We'll
double
follow
checked,
through.
because
And
when
again,
I'm reading it, it's saying it needs to be in there.
Right. I'm not like, you shouldn't report that. It
Yeah.
could come across like very bad. for anyone
It came out a
watching.
little bit that way, but that's.
But I do think that like, it's mainly that line in there about the gender-based, because it's very, again, of reasons I've already stated, I feel like it's a very slippery slope for somebody who has that type of identifying factors that are outside the biological sex, to male or female, and that being an issue with somebody's religious beliefs, and then they're being accused of harassment for something that is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So we're going to ask you to come back
Yeah.
with some language changes. We have second reading. If it turns out that there is more discussion needed at the end of that because of what is
Right.
brought back to us by the superintendent, we can always review it
Yeah.
at the meeting after
Yeah.
that. So
We've had some go
there'll
through
be, right, there'll be some opportunities still to discuss after we've gotten a little more clarity on the language part of that.
Yeah.
Is that comfortable with everyone?
I just appreciate the feedback this time so we can bring back with
Right.
information.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
great.
This
And
is
I always
the
feel
right
nervous
time.
because it's like you brought one or two little edits and then I'm
No,
throwing
I-
all this back.
No, no, no.
So, but
This is
time to do
perfect.
it.
This is the time to do it.
First reading is when you have to.
Yeah.
And it does also say, and I'll just throw it out here, in paragraphs 15, 20, and 22, these are just my notes. So again, I'd have to find them where they're exactly in here. It does say the term sexual harassment, but it leaves gender-based harassment off. So it's almost like that's really what it means, but it's adding gender-based in other places.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
It's
so
the
maybe the
language
wording,
of it, yeah.
I feel like we can take it all
Consistency.
off or have it consistent.
Consistent, yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So.
With that, we've given directive to the superintendent to follow up. We'll move on to the first reading of policy 3255, student conduct code, and you saw this had very little update. This is a policy
I did have
on
one.
here for a long time.
Is that the very last line of the first paragraph? Is that hyphen supposed to be there? The responsibility to learn.
No.
I'm pulling up.
Good.
Yeah, good job.
That's all I got for this one.
And good eye, good eye.
We'll tell
We've been letting that ride since 2017.
For whatever reason, that one jumped out to me. I don't see any of the other ones, but.
Okay.
Yeah, 2017.
Get rid of the Aaron hyphen there. Okay, are there any other questions on that? If not, we'll move on to consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. We do have now the second reading of some policies, and you will see the first one is 3081. School restroom changes, school restroom and changing facilities. You saw there was not much. Is there, I'll entertain a motion for that.
Yeah. I make a motion to adopt the revisions to policy 3081, school restroom and changing facility access and overnight lodging.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. And we have second reading of policy 9,550, our new policy on cybersecurity and data breach response. We've all had a chance to look at this. Is there any, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adopt new policy 9550, cybersecurity and data breach response.
I'll second that.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Boom. Administrative announcements.
Already?
Anyone? I know, right? Snuck up on you.
Fast.
You don't have to if you don't want
No,
to.
I will. So I was trying to look back on what's going on. I don't know if you guys know that the third graders swim at YMCA. They get swim lessons. Did you know this? The long
All
bridge
third
swim.
graders?
Yes.
Forgot.
So the Long Bridge Swim Association pays, I believe, for instructors at the YMCA. So we just had all our third grade complete of 4-week swimming lessons at the Y, which is really great because these kids live in San Juan around water, and there were several kids that do not know how to swim. And then the kids that think they're the best swimmers, my son, got some skill sets themselves. And then I guess the next thing on the docket is tomorrow we're partnering with the library. This is brand new to us. We're copying from Stidwell and Kootenai, but it's called Think, Make, Create. And the library comes in and does stations for our Title I night, so kids can like make slime or make paper airplanes. There's like 7 different stations that kids can rotate through, and we just got title back this year, and so our title event is tomorrow from 3:30 to 5. Nice. Tanya, you could walk down the road if you want to check it out. Okay.
Thank you. That's awesome.
I think Hope Elementary goes to the
Hope Pool?
Yeah, the Hope Pool there. I think they go down to that resort there. Yeah. For the 3rd grade.
And Northside is too.
Anything
Northside goes
from
up to there too.
Sandpoint High?
Oh, gosh, there's so many. Big whisper back here. Recently, our students from Everyday Physics class got to go explore the concrete plant that one of us knows near and dear, and it was really a great application of learning about how science works and its everyday application. So that was a pretty great activity that they were doing. I guess there was some really cool swag that they got with some sunglasses and things too. We have baseball and softball going on in this weather, and tennis was canceled this evening, but just a thank you for your consideration for the track. Not only will that impact 4 away meets next week, but it's also an outdoor classroom during the school year too. So, you know, it's something that it will be used tremendously. So that's a great thank you. And just wanted to introduce Chris Taylor. If you haven't met him yet, he's our current associate administrator, and he'll be the assistant principal at Sandpoint High School next year. So
great.
Very excited to have him on board.
You
can talk
now. It feels weird to sit down and talk. Yeah, Ms. Kroskamp did want me to just, I guess, celebrations and thank you guys for, we've been working a lot on our truancy and just getting kids to come to school and get them back after COVID. I mean, they'll look at you like, what, I have to come to school like every day? That's real conversations we have. It's kind of weird. But since last year, ADA was about 75%. We're at 96% right now, which, yeah, there is some coding that helps that, but overall, like, it's still way better. I think West Ada School District's around 92%. So we've made some awesome strides. Jake Polnick, our attendance officer, was telling me just a few stories that there was a senior that had missed 16 days unexcused, which is, yeah, a ton. And since we started putting them on our truancy, our contracts, our levels, that we've worked them through and kind of shine a light on them, they've missed 1 day since then, passing all their classes. Yeah, this is a senior that was pretty much going to drop out. And we have a bunch of stories just like that, focusing on a lot of the sophomore, juniors that when they do just fall under the radar and no one hears about them because they're not behavior problems, they just end up dropping out. And so it's really that every student, every day, and all these kids need sometimes is shining that light on them, let them know, like, hey, first off, don't do that, you can't miss. But second off, I want you to be here, how can I help you get here? And you're going to be successful when we do get you here. So that's kind of our celebration. I think it's going really, really well, and yeah, look forward to seeing that. You're just better.
I just want to reinforce a welcome to Chris Taylor. He went through the interview process. He obviously had a foot in the door since he was an ed administrator or associate administrator, we call him now, in the process. But I will tell you, they came back home. He was in Arizona, and he married, I was his wife's principal, and she graduated from Sandpoint High School. So luckily, she convinced him to come back. And he was in West Bonner for a year, and then wanted to be in the best district in the state, so he was in our district.
And I was his wife's teacher too. So
there you go.
Well, thank you. Are there any other administrative announcements? Okay.
right.
I will entertain a motion to move into executive.
I make a motion to move into executive session as provided for in Idaho Code Title 74, Section 206, subsection 1B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student.
I second that.
It's moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Sorry, let me get back to that window.
Already?
Roll call vote, trustee Peters.
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Wood.
Yes.
Trustee Sherman. Chair Lewis.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
So terrible.
I have solidarity.
Never been 100%.
I know. And there's rebels at the table. That's